I want to start the show off with our pinned comment on today's episode and get everyone watching involved down below because I want to know what your expectations are for this Falcons team. And I'm going to leave it relatively open-ended too, right? Is it reaching a certain number of wins? Is it learning whether or not Desmond Ridder is the guy? Is it Kyle Pitts living up to the top 5 pick expectations? I just want to hear your expectations for this team in 2023. Now, coming up on today's show, we've got a twosome for the people. ESPN ranked the Falcons' offensive weapons, the running back, wide receiver, and tight end trio. And then we're going to look at their offseason standout surprise. So a good show laid out for everyone today. And let's start with the offseason standout surprise, which is Josh Ali, the wide receiver, former UDFA out of Kentucky. He is the standout surprise labeled by Michael Rothstein. And here's what Rothstein had to say about Ali. In Atlanta's wide-open receiver room after Drake London, it is an almost unknown player who has stood out. Ali, who was on the practice squad last year after suffering a knee injury late in his college career at Kentucky, worked a bunch in 2022 with Falcons starting quarterback Desmond Ridder. That chemistry has shown, and Ali has gotten work with the veterans. Usually a good sign for a player with 14 career snaps and 1 career target. Will he make the team? It's unclear. Has he put himself in a potential position out of spring? Quite possibly. So some more background on information on Ali. UDFA, like I mentioned, coming out of Kentucky, made the practice squad initially. He wasn't even like a priority UDFA signing, by the way. He got a late minicamp invite, and then he wasn't even invited to training camp until later in August. Now, he was on the practice squad for much of last season. He was activated and elevated to the active roster for week 17 and 18. And over those 2 weeks, he logged a combined 14 snaps and just 1 target. So essentially, we know nothing about Josh Ali, at least in the NFL, right? If I have any Kentucky fans watching, they can testify a lot more about him as a player. But just going off the numbers and what he did in Lexington in his last season with the Wildcats, 601 yards and 3 touchdowns in 10 games. Over his career, he put together 1,400 yards and 8 touchdowns. He was never a red zone target for Stoops in Kentucky. Not a huge player either, 6 foot tall, 210 pounds-ish. So he does offer some special teams versatility. He did some punt returning work when he was with the Wildcats, which does make you wonder, could Josh Ali be an Avery Williams replacement, right? Once the Falcons lost their penciled-in return man due to a season-ending ACL injury, maybe Josh Ali can kind of nudge his way onto this 53-man roster and prove to be a valuable returner for this team over the preseason and training camp, and that's how he can nudge his way onto the 53. The wide receiver room for Atlanta, we have talked about at length, so I won't beat a dead horse here, but it's safe to say after Drake London and Mac Hollins and Scotty Miller too, it's wide open. Most teams take 6 wide receivers. Maybe some take 5, maybe some take 7, but 6 on average. I don't know the last time a team had 3 wide receivers locked to make a roster and the last 3 spots being relatively up for grabs. Like I think Kadarius Hodge and Frank Darby are probably on the inside track, but still, I would not put a gun to my head and say Frank Darby or Kadarius Hodge is a lock to make this roster, just like Drake London and Mac Hollins are. The Falcons need a wide receiver to stand out, not because their offense is predicated on that. Atlanta threw the ball the second fewest amount of times last year in the NFL. Only the Chicago Bears threw it least, which, by the way, is kind of a weird coincidence because both those teams finished top 2 in sacks on defense. So I don't know if there's really a correlation there, but some fun stats for you guys. But the point is, the offense is not predicated on the wide receiver room. They want to run the football, but still, you'd like to have some more talent at that position. Now, I want to give some quick shout-outs here on the show before we move on even further, because we've had some frequent commenters here, and I just want to give back to everyone who takes time out of their day to come hang out and join this channel. So, Staten Gage, Archangel is the MVP of comments, no question about it. Tony Wright, Scott Pitcher, thank you guys so much for commenting and subscribing here at the channel. If you have not subscribed and you want to give a shout-out, we want to get a shout out rather, subscribe, comment, like the video, all that good stuff, and we'll have your name and face on screen in a future Falcons Today episode. Now, shifting gears a little bit, let's talk about Bill Barnwell, the ESPN team reporter who ranked all 32 NFL teams' running back, wide receiver, and tight end trios with this in mind. I'm trying to separate out a team's playmakers, its running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends exclusively. If we gave every team an average quarterback, offensive line, and play caller and had them play at an average pace, which would have the league's best offense? So now we're going to take a look and see where they ranked the Falcons under this, and Atlanta cracked the top 10. When you look at ESPN's rankings, the 49ers, the Bengals, and the Eagles sit at the top. Not too surprising. McCaffrey, Debo, Kittle, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. Philly's got a lot of wide receivers. Running back, not so much. The Seahawks and the Chargers round out the top 5. Minnesota at 6. I guess Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson do enough on their own. Cowboys at 7. Okay with Pollard and CD. Miami at 8, there's no real ground game there, and they don't have a tight end, but they have a lot of good wide receivers. Jacksonville at 9 seems a bit high. They're going to get Ridley, but I like Travis Etienne. Okay, I guess I can be persuaded into that. And then Atlanta comes in at number 10. So, not going to lie, when I opened up this article and I started scrolling to see where the Falcons would be, I did not expect them to be top 10 just because they've got some great players at all 3 of those positions. Running back, wide receiver, and tight end with London, Bijan, and Pitts. But they don't have a lot of depth after that. But if you're just looking for a top shelf line right there, that's one heck of a top shelf line between your running back, wide receiver, and tight end. So this feels a little bit on the higher side just because, and we'll look at this later on, Bill Barnwell says he weighted wide receivers heavier than running backs, and Atlanta really just has one wide receiver in Drake London as a top elite playmaker, if you will. So I thought because wide receivers were weighted heavier that the Falcons would take a bit of a hit because their playmakers come in the ground game with Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson. But top 10 feels like a win for Arthur Smith and the Falcons. Now, another win is getting your very own Falcons USA themed t-shirt. 4th of July is just around the corner. Do not be like me. Do not put it off. And on the 3rd of July, or even on the morning of the 4th of July, you are just tearing apart your closet. You're driving to Old Navy. You're driving to Walmart or something. You're trying to get a new USA-themed shirt. Get your own Falcons USA-themed shirt on sale. You're basically losing money. Chatsports.com/Falcons USA shirt if you don't get it today because the sale's not going to last forever and you don't want to be a bozo that puts this off and it comes in the mail on the 5th of July and you just wake up just cursing your name because you did not listen to Petey on Falcons Today. So get your own Falcons USA themed shirt. Use that link. It's in the comments and the description of today's video. Now, the big heavyweight hitters in the Falcons core for Bill Barnwell's exercise were Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts. 3 players, all homegrown, that were picked top 10. So, needless to say, the expectations are very high. And there is a lot to be excited about when it comes to this core if they all live and play up to top 10 expectations, right? I have said that Bijan Robinson is going to finish his career as the Falcons' all-time leader in rushing yards, touchdown carries, all of the above. Drake London last year put up extremely good numbers for an offense that threw the football the second fewest in the NFL. Think about that for a second. Drake London put up 866 yards in an offense that threw it 300 or so times. If he was in a pass-heavy offense, he would be the undoubted NFL Rookie of the Year. And then there's Kyle Pitts, right, who in his rookie season went over 1,000 yards, never emerged as a red zone target, didn't really catch on with Mariota to start the year last year, and then a knee injury cut his season short. But if Kyle Pitts is able to get back to what he was doing in Gainesville, it's going to be a nightmare for opposing defensive coordinators to try and game plan for Bijan Robinson in the backfield, while also respecting Drake London on the boundary. Oh, and by the way, We have Kyle Pitts running up the seam. So if you plan to commit your linebackers to stopping the run, you're going to get burned over the middle with Kyle Pitts. Like this offense, if these three guys are all clicking at a high level, it would be very difficult to stop. Now, the big if is they all need to be clicking at the same time, and we'll see that over the next couple of weeks and months going into training camp and preseason football. And if they do live and look like top 10 players, this Falcons team is going to be sneaky underrated because you watching at home could be the quarterback, and all you got to do is hand it off to Bijan or find a huge target like Kyle Pitts or throw it outside to Drake London, and they will do the rest. Now, of this trio, and this might be the Falcons' future, and hopefully it is for years to come, who do you think the best player is? You can make good arguments for all three. We haven't seen Bijan play, but it feels like his ceiling is the highest. Drake London, like I said, in a very run-happy offense, still put up very productive numbers. And then Kyle Pitts, I mean, I feel like coming out of college, he was the unicorn. If we can get back to those days for Pitts, all three players have great cases to make for being the best of the bunch for Atlanta for the next decade plus. That's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have not subscribed, consider going ahead and doing so. We're going to get you guys free Falcons content all off season long.